This is Tracy with CFP follow-up. Date of 3/22/21, time of 11:10 a.m. Eastern Standard. Thank you. The first question is asking if you could share with us your experience communicating with the ICU staff.
The ICU staff was fabulous. Doctors called every day to check in, to tell me what was going on. When I would call, I would always get a nurse on the phone, and they would either get the nurse that was treating my husband, or the nurse that was treating my husband would call me back in a timely manner to tell me what was going on.
Thank you. And do you feel like you were given enough information from ICU staff?
Yes, totally. They were totally informative and very helpful.
Did you receive any emotional support from anyone at the hospital?
Yes. The chaplain was very nice. There was a traveling nurse that was also very nice when I talked to her. And there was one doctor, and his name was Ben. I don't know his last name, but he was really supportive and very kind and very informational.
And what about, similar question, what about spiritual or religious support? Did you receive or feel like you received emotional spiritual or religious support from anyone at the hospital?
Yes, the rabbi contacted me, and he was fabulous. He was willing to talk as long as it took, and he was very calming and supportive.
Wonderful. Now, with the ICU staff, were there any problems or challenges?
No, there were none at all. Those didn't come until the step-down staff took over. The ICU staff was absolutely all-stars.
And I just wanted to make a verbal note that during the interview, you had mentioned that the transition for your husband after leaving the ICU, that you felt like they dropped the ball as far as care, and that you felt like it was a terrible or horrible experience. Do you mind elaborating on that a little bit?
Well, no one ever called me. I couldn't get a hold of anyone. I left messages for the doctor. Finally, on the third day, the doctor, I forget her name, she did call me back. She said, I have nothing new to report. She was very cold, very curt. I tried to ask her questions, and she basically blew me off and, left me hanging as far as the phone call. When he was transferred to the rehabilitation center, I didn't find out until it was done. The step-down unit is horribly coordinated, horribly ran, and during COVID, there was no you need communication because you cannot visit the hospital. Mm-hmm. So that ball was very much dropped. It was horrible. It was a terrible experience.
Thank you for sharing that. I definitely wanted to get that, your words, as part of that experience and overall what you have gone through. So thank you. You mentioned the pandemic. Do you feel for the ICU that the pandemic affected the communication with the hospital at any time or any of the restrictions?
I think it affected the ICU in a good way. I think they were much more probably communicative with the patient's family. They were all-stars. They were just fabulous in those daily phone calls, or when I would call, I would always get answers, and they were just very, very kind. The step-down unit, once he was moved, was horrible. You couldn't get a hold of anybody. When you did, they were curt. It just was terrible. I don't know if the pandemic had anything to do with that, other than I would think that if the ICU could take time to communicate with families, that the step-down unit would have even more time to do so, but they did it much, much less. It was terrible.
Thank you for that. And so it sounds like when your husband was in the ICU, you were hearing from staff every day. Did you?
Every day.
Every day. And so how often did you need to call anyone who was caring for him at the hospital, if any?
Well, I would call every morning when I woke up because I had trouble sleeping. I was anxious on how he was doing. So I would call in the morning, and then one of the doctors would call me in the afternoon to update me. So I would have communication with the ICU twice a day.
And so you were given information on who to call. Was there any point where they offered to do communication through like video conferencing?
I had one traveling nurse that would take a phone in, even though my husband couldn't talk because he was on a ventilator. She would put it by his head, and I would talk to him. And I think that helped me, definitely. But I think it also helped him on a subconscious level.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I've heard similar. Okay. Thank you. And so it sounds like you talked to different staff throughout the hospitalizations. Definitely chaplain was mentioned. Dr. Ben, was he an ICU physician or more of a specialist?
Yes.
Okay.
He was an ICU. I don't know if he was a physician or if he was on rotation.
Gotcha.
I just know that he was very kind.
Did you?
And after he left, I missed talking to him.
Aw. He sounds like he was great.
Yeah, he was.
Did you speak to any other staff, social work, palliative care, anyone else come to mind?
Yeah, I spoke to the palliative care lady. I just wanted to punch her.
What, do you feel comfortable sharing what happened?
I need to prepare my heart. Well,
okay.
That was the stupidest statement. If I heard it from her mouth one more time, I was going to scream.
Gotcha.
You cannot prepare your heart to lose someone you love. It was a dumb statement, and someone should tell her to stop saying it.
We appreciate you telling us what happened. This is very good information, so thank you. When your husband was in the hospitalization, were you responsible for updating everyone, keeping everyone in the loop?
Yes.
And did you find that difficult to do, or was it fairly easy?
No, it was fairly easy.
And how did you keep everyone up to date? Was it calls or text message or some other means? Okay.
No, text messages to friends, but calls to our children.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.